Hey there, my fellow lunatics, and welcome to Dakon's Madhouse. Today, we're going to go over all of the max level ranged weapons and rank them. However, before we do, let's take a quick look at all the grading rules. Number 1, all items are fully upgraded to level 18. Number 2, I am assuming that the player is at the end game and trying to figure out what is the best weapon overall. Number 3, different playstyles can alter the rankings of various weapons for different people. I try to stay neutral and take all playstyles into account. Hopefully, I don't let my biases show too much. And number 4, all items are reinforced, because in the end game, you have no excuse not to keep your gear reinforced at all times. Now, unless I suddenly change my mind throughout all of these upcoming videos, you are going to see screenshots of all of my max level items without reinforcement. Now, this is because I already took all of these screenshots in one of my previous tier videos, and frankly, it took me weeks of boring, cutting, pasting, cropping, and I'm not doing it again. I'm sorry, but I'm just not. So none of the images that I show are going to show the reinforcement, but I just want to let you know reinforcement does matter. And just to emphasize this really quick, here's an example of a max level item without reinforcement and one with reinforcement. I mean, just take a look at that damage jump. All of the weapons are like this, so don't forget to reinforce your gear. Starting with the S tier. This is the top tier. These are going to be our super versatile items, best of the best, things that are used in multiple builds. A tier, those are going to be excellent items. Top tier for at least one build, and often versatile, but not necessarily the best of the best. B tier are strong items that you really aren't going to complain about, but they have limited use or are eventually outclassed by other items. C tier, these items are fine. You can't go wrong with them, but you will eventually replace them, or you are going to replace them pretty quickly. D tier, maybe these items have a little bit of a niche use, but otherwise they're really not that useful or worthwhile. And F tier, the item is trash. It's not any good. Don't bother using it. All right, with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started with ranking all of the weapons. All right, let's go ahead and get started with the Blowpipe, and this one is going into A tier. Now, this is an amazing weapon, and frankly, I would be putting it into S tier if it did more than just poison. Like if it had some other bonus ability, like a damage bonus or a crit chance bonus or something. But it just does poison, and by the time you reach endgame, fast and just doing poison isn't quite enough to make it into S tier anymore. Then we've got the Bomb Mortar Scarab, and this thing is going into D tier. For explosive builds, that's a pretty good weapon to use, but it's better used as a mining tool. It's a terrible weapon. The Bubble Gun. What can I say about this? My notes for this tier list for the Bubble Gun is just a scream emoji. So take from that what you will. I don't like this weapon. The Grub Zuka. This one I'm putting into C tier. It is kind of fun for blowing up walls, and for an explosive build, it's not that bad. You know, if you're gonna go with an explosive build, this is probably the best weapon to use. But it's still just not really a great weapon. It's just kind of fun to use for a little while, so you might actually get some use out of it as a mining tool. But as a ranged weapon, it's quickly replaced. The Cupid Bow. This one is going into F tier. The only point of upgrading the Cupid Bow to level 18 is to increase its damage, and since the Cupid Bow's purpose is to turn enemy units into friendly units, you don't want to damage them. So the upgrades for this are terrible. A level 18 Cupid Bow is worse than a starter level Cupid Bow. Just stick with the starter level bow if you're going to use it. The Fireball Staff is next, and this one is going into A tier as well. Now this does more raw damage than the Scholar Staff, and it has burn damage, which if your build is burn based, the Scholar Staff just doesn't do as well as the Fireball Staff will. Maxed out at level 18, the Fireball Staff's damage is just a little bit better, and so overall from the staff weapon category, this is pretty much the best one. However, its speed really starts to become noticeable here as it just slows down and isn't quite as good of a weapon compared to some of the faster weapons in the game. Kind of the reason why the Flintlock Musket here is also going into A tier. It is just so slow. However, at max level, the Flintlock Musket is the highest single shot damage weapon in the game. And with the right build, you can one-shot a hard mode boss, any hard mode boss, with this weapon. So it is a good weapon, and it is definitely worth using. It's great in builds, and if you're the type of person who likes to do a lot of damage with a single shot but doesn't mind being slow attack speed, then this probably is the weapon for you. Up next is the Galaxite Shakum, and this is our first S tier item. It is craftable. It is easy to get your hands on, it is easy to level up, and its bonus puts it at the top tier when it comes to just useful and versatile items. Anything that has some sort of crit bonus, whether it's crit damage or crit hit, is going to provide one of the more versatile options for you because crit is used in pretty much every build. As a result, the Galaxite Shakum is an amazing and versatile weapon that is used in a multitude of different ranged builds. The Grub Zuka here is going right into F tier, however. All it does is break walls, and low level walls at that. It can't even handle any of the higher level walls. It's absolutely useless. If you're going to use one of the Zookas at this point, you're going to be using the Burn Zooka, not the Grub Zuka. The Hand Mortar is pretty much also going into D tier. I would put it into F tier, but when it's maxed out at level 18, it is literally identical to the Bomb Scarab Mortar. There is no difference. They have the same damage, they have the same explosive rates, they have the same everything, the same attack speed, the same durability. They are the same item, so they get the same rank. Iron Bow, this guy is next and is going right into S tier. And you're like, wait, what? Why is the Iron Bow going into S tier for level 18 items? Look at its damage. The Iron Bow does excellent damage at high level, and it parallels and rivals all the other ranged items, even at this point in time. The Iron Bow is a contender for best ranged weapon in the game in general. So it is absolutely going into S tier. Unfortunately, the same can't be said for the Octarine Bow, which is going into C tier. The attack speed for this weapon does help boost it up a little bit, but frankly, you're going to replace it rather quickly. And if you're leveling up items, you don't even need to bother using it. Just keep on using your Iron Bow. So it's a replaceable item, but if you don't have better, go for it. The Phantom Spark is next, and this one I am putting into S tier. Are there ranged items that do better damage? Yes, but it is indestructible, and those ghost adds, especially at level 18, are extremely useful, extremely helpful, and when you're out there roaming the deserts, you don't want to be constantly replacing your weapon. So if you're not fighting a boss, well, even if you are fighting a boss, just because of those ghost adds are really helpful on bosses, this is a great weapon to get your hands on and is worth spending the time to find it. The Ricochet Shuriken is also going into S tier. At max level, its damage and attack speed are unparalleled and is one of the fastest boss killing weapons that you will find. I kind of am starting to like it better than my favorite weapon, which is the throwing daggers. So that says a lot about how much I really enjoy these Ricochet Shurikens. It's a great weapon when maxed out. Unfortunately, the Scarlet Crossbow is not a great weapon when maxed out. It is better than other crossbows because the damage actually isn't that bad once you level it up. Weirdly enough, the Scarlet Crossbow's damage is higher than some of the other crossbows that you would think at the same level, but that's all it's got going for it. It doesn't have anything in bonuses. It's slow. It's just not that good. So it's a little gimmicky, and that's the only reason it's not F tier. But it probably should. It teeters between D tier and F tier. The Scholar Staff, this one I am putting into A tier because right at about level 18, the Scholar Staff and the Fireball Staff do really even out with each other. The Scholar Staff doesn't do as much damage as the Fireball Staff. However, its bonuses do increase its damage a little bit more, but the burn damage of the Fireball Staff kind of balances it out. So their damage is comparable. You don't have to upgrade the Scholar Staff nearly as much as you would the Fireball Staff, but you're going to have the Fireball Staff for longer. And so if you're used to the playstyle, it really just depends on what kind of playstyle you're going for between the Scholar Staff or the Fireball Staff at this point. Next, we have got the Slingshot, and at level 18, this one is going into F tier. By this point, your range skill should be maxed out, and this is a training weapon. Once you've maxed out your range skill, there's no reason to ever look at this, and there's no reason to ever upgrade this. So just skip it altogether. The Solarite Crossbow, this one is going into C tier. It's not bad. It's not great. You're going to replace it pretty quickly. Its crit boost is pretty good, but it's slow. And that's the big problem with all of the crossbows, is their weapon speed is just so slow that it makes it difficult to deal with large amounts of mobs. However, it's still a pretty good one. As far as crossbows go, this is still the best crossbow. The Sticky Stick, this one is going into F tier. While slowing enemies is really useful in the early game, it is not that useful in the late game. And while the Sticky Stick does really slow your enemies, it's just not necessary. Its damage is weak, and it just becomes a cheap gimmick, and a gimmick that doesn't even work at all at this level, which is why I'm putting it into F tier. And we've got our last good item here. These are the throwing daggers, and these are going into S tier as one of my favorite items in the game. I really think that this is a great weapon. Its damage is really high. Its speed is really high. The crit boost is great, and you will find yourself just mowing down enemies and bosses with this weapon. You can't go wrong. And in the typical fashion of wooden items, we're going to end with an F tier wooden bow, as well as an F tier wooden crossbow. Both of these items are not worth leveling up. They're early game weapons at best. Use them when they are good at the very beginning of the game, and then just don't look back. Don't bother leveling them up to 18. They're not worth spending the time. And that wraps everything up for today's episode. If you enjoyed yourself, please be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you're interested in watching my videos regularly, and if you feel like adding some extra support to the channel, you can always join our Patreon or become a YouTube member. There are links in the description. Thanks again for watching. You're all wonderful, and until next time, stay crazy.